Department of Justice announced the findings of an investigation it conducted prior to my team taking office. We will not make excuses for the mistakes of the past. We will make changes, and we will continue to make progress. We are not waiting. We are taking action. Our goal is to make LMPD the most trained, trusted, and transparent police department in America. And today's announcement is an important step in the right direction, especially when it comes to trust and transparency. In 2020, Metro government established the Office of Inspector General, along with the Civilian Review and Accountability Board, by ordinance from the Metro Council. The Office of Inspector General is separate and independent from LMPD, and its mission is to increase transparency and civilian oversight of the police department. I want to thank Ed Harness, who's with us today, for taking on this incredibly important work as Inspector General for our city, because we need this office, and we need this office to be a fair and impartial organization. The Inspector General is accountable to the community. His job is to oversee the way officers conduct the work they do on behalf of the people of Louisville, so that when there is a question or a complaint, the Inspector General reviews the complaint, investigates, and can say with authority that the complaint has merit or doesn't. The Inspector General's credibility is essential for the trust that we are building between LMPD and the public. But in order for the Inspector General to do his job, he has to have access to officers who will participate in the interviews with him and his team. And he needs access to other sources of information, like raw footage from body cameras. One of the issues that our administration has inherited is that this was not happening. Officers were not cooperating with interview requests, and complete body camera footage was not being supplied. That is unacceptable. Since day one, our administration has been working to facilitate an agreement between LMPD and the Office of Inspector General. That's in everyone's interest. And today, I'm proud to announce that LMPD and the Office of Inspector General have agreed to a memorandum of understanding. The agreement strengthens investigations by the Office of Inspector General on behalf of the Civilian Review and Accountability Board in two important ways. First, the Chief of LMPD will require officers to attend witness interviews requested by the Office of Inspector General. The OIG, in turn, will make sure the interview process complies with state law and affords officers due process. There had been a lack of clarity around officers' rights and due process, and now we've clarified that and are able to move forward. The second way this agreement improves transparency involves body camera footage. The Office of Inspector General will now receive direct access to body-worn camera footage related to the incidents under the investigation. This direct access will enhance the ability of the Office of Inspector General to investigate any complaints that may be made by community members. And it will help address concerns about any delay or manipulation of the footage. This agreement also directly addresses one of the remedial measures suggested by the Department of Justice. Specifically, Remedial Measure 31 recommends we improve the civilian oversight. It states, quote, "To help build trust with the community, LMPD should cooperate with the Inspector General and Civilian Review and Accountability Board to promote robust and even-handed civilian oversight. It should also prioritize transparency in its internal affairs practices, including reporting to the public about the nature of complaints received, misconduct, findings made, and discipline imposed," end quote. We agree. We are not waiting to sign a consent decree. We are taking action. Today's announcement will strengthen the community's trust in LMPD and enhance its transparency. I want to thank everyone involved in making this agreement a reality. We're going to hear from two of the key folks involved in making it possible for us to take this important step forward. In addition to our Inspector General and our Police Chief, I also want to thank two people in particular. First, David Kaplan, my Chief of Staff and General Counsel, who has worked tirelessly to help reach this agreement between all parties involved. Second and third, I said two, I actually meant three. Second and third, I want to thank two members of Metro Council who supported this ordinance when it was originally created and who have been involved and participated in conversations to help us get here. Both, unfortunately, were unable to be with us today. Councilman Ja'Cory Arthur and also Councilwoman Paula McCraney. Paula has been very helpful in the last few days as well as we have sought to reach this agreement. And I want to thank both Paula and Ja'Cory for their incredible work towards this and their effort. Now, let's hear from the person who's leading our Inspector General's office, the Inspector General himself, Ed Harness. Ed?
Thank you, sir. Good afternoon, everyone. First off, I'd like to thank Mayor Greenberg and, as pointed out, Chief of Staff Kaplan, also Deputy Mayor Dorsey, who was involved in moving this agreement forward. It's a seminal day here for Louisville Metro as we've reached this agreement that will allow the Inspector General's office to conclude investigations that have already been authorized and duly authorized by the Civilian Review and Accountability Board, but also clear the way for future investigations to move forward. We are taking big steps towards what we've anticipated would happen over the last year. Our office has been formed knowing that a consent decree was going to be coming to Louisville Metro, and so we've been prepared to take on those investigations in the way that the Department of Justice would want us to do so. So we are fully prepared to do that. We have a great trained staff. We're ready to go, and I want to thank the administration, City Council, and everyone, Chief Villarreal as well, in helping aid us moving forward so that we can begin the work of the Office of Inspector General. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Inspector General Harness. And as I mentioned earlier, we created this agreement because we know that ultimately our police officers will be in a better position to do their jobs more safely and more effectively by taking steps like this that improve public trust. This and many other things that our Chief of Police, Jacqueline Gwynn Bellaroel, are leading the department through, are leading towards this improved trust with our entire community. Ladies and gentlemen, Chief Gwynn Bellaroel.
Mayor, and to his administration, and to our elected officials, to the IG, Mr. Ed Harness, but also to my executive team, and for you all working so closely with me for us to be here today with our MOU signed today, and with our legal team that was just very heavily involved in this process. And to the community, what you're seeing today is where parent and do what is right and what is best for the community, but also to ensure that our officers understand their due process as we move along with working with the Inspector General's office. So again, I submit to you that LMPD is doing what it needs to do in order for us to be the best agency that you deserve and that you require, so as we continue to serve the citizens of Louisville. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chief. Thanks to everyone involved in making this agreement happen. We're very proud of this agreement, and there's much more to come. Our administration will continue to deliver reforms and improvements that strengthen the trust between our community and our police officers. We are not waiting. We are taking action. Thank you all very much, and I'm happy to take some questions from the media if you all have them.
This is a question for Mr. Harness. Looking at the agreement, it says that an officer can refuse to take questions. LMPD has the power of approval over your investigators before they can look at the database, and that LMPD can stop a review board investigation if it's conflicting with a criminal investigation. Is this accurate?
I don't know that how you phrased the first portion of your question is correct, but the scope of the IG investigations are administrative. We will not be doing criminal investigations, and I think perhaps what you're referring to is the section regarding officer-involved shootings, where we will wait for the Commonwealth Attorney to make a ruling before that shooting is reviewed by the Civilian Review and Accountability Board. Regarding refusal to cooperate with our investigations from LMPD personnel, it is a condition of their employment, and were they to not cooperate with our investigation, it would be treated as though they didn't cooperate with a PSU investigation, and therefore the chief would have the right to take discipline.
Could you articulate in your terms what power this gives you now?
Well, what this gives us now is it puts us on equal-ish terms with the PSU. The internal affairs investigation on the LMPD side, so that we do have compelled cooperation from officers. So when we identify witnesses and when we target officers for investigations, they must come in and speak with us. We also now have direct access to lapel videos or body camera video and dash cam video. Without having to request that information from the department, we will be able to go in and directly look at it when we identify relevant video for an investigation.
Yes.
Good afternoon, sir. The Urban League yesterday announced several of the policies, at least 18 of them, that they wanted to see or be implemented. Have you or any of the other folks been in conversations with the Urban League or try to implement that, in this announcement or future ones?
So we have had conversations. We will continue to have conversations with the Urban League, and we continue to accept any feedback that the folks throughout the community want to make into the collective bargaining agreement with the Fraternal Order of Police. But I'm glad you asked that question, because there's great misunderstanding in the community about what's in the collective bargaining agreement and what's not. What we have to wait to include in the collective bargaining agreement and what we don't. Today is the perfect example. Today is a great example of LMPD and our administration taking action. This did not need to go through the collective bargaining agreement to enter into the memorandum of understanding with the Office of Inspector General. Little to none of the remedial measures suggested by the Department of Justice require changes to the collective bargaining agreement. So we are going to continue to be focused on making reforms and improvement that LMPD and our administration continue to implement without waiting for a consent decree, without waiting for the conclusion of a collective bargaining agreement. We are not waiting. In the meantime, with respect to the collective bargaining agreement, we continue to welcome any input from the community. We've certainly had conversations with Urban League and other organizations, our chief of staff, our executive director of our Office of Equity, others in our administration have met with them and other groups, and we can continue to listen to input that folks in the community provide.
Mr. Mayor.
Billy.
Mr. Harness, can you talk about, in your mind, who or what was to blame for the struggles that we had before today with kind of this confusion over cooperation? Was it simply a policy wasn't clear enough, or was it really more kind of pushback on the side of personnel?
Well, I can say that there was a lack of action with the previous administration, and once the new administration was in office, there was a much more aggressive stance on getting an agreement done, and that's what really precipitated and gave this agreement some momentum.
And then secondly, can you give an update on how many investigations you began and completed? I think last year you had set 6 investigations, but since then, can you give an update?
I think we're at 14 authorized investigations at this point, but don't quote me on that. You can go to our website and you can look for those that have been authorized.
I know an earlier version of the ordinance talked about giving, the PSU has to give the civilian complaints within 3 days, and they wanted access to records and raw data will this be something you will consider in the future with this agreement?
Yes. I believe that provision is not in the MOU regarding turning over the complaints received by PSU regarding a civilian complaint. I'm not sure. I don't believe that that's in this MOU, but I believe it's in the ordinance amendment. So I can't comment as to how government oversight and audit is going to handle that. And then I'm sorry, what was the second part of the question?
Oh, the second part was talking about access to reports and raw data.
Those will certainly, those are in the ordinance as well. The two main provisions that we were focused on at the IG was personnel and video at this point.
I have a question for the chief. It sounds like the ability to compel testimony is essentially dependent on whether or not the current chief is willing to make good on the threat of discipline if they refuse to participate. Is that a commitment that you're making, that you are willing and ready to compel officers to participate in these kind of investigations?
Yes, it's in the MOU that we will compel them to actually appear before the IG office. But let me say this, I fully know from where I stand today that my officers are wanting to do what is best for the department and for the community. So I'm going to put myself out here and say I got faith in them as I stand today, that they will do what is in the best interest in order to move these processes along. This is a new day. You keep hear the mayor say a new direction. Here we are. And so I'm asking my executive team, my command staff, to enlighten and educate the officers as to what the process is. And so they are fully aware that their due process is protected. They understand what the MOU is saying to them, and we can just move along. So that's what I'm saying. Thank you.
Thanks. Just one more quick announcement before we wrap up here, and that is unrelated to this. Tomorrow night we are having our first Mayor's Night Out at 5:30 p.m. at the Northeast YMCA. We are bringing back this tradition, not just with myself, but with representatives from many of the departments throughout Metro government, including the Chief of Police, where people from throughout the community can come ask questions. If they have complaints, if they have ideas, they can join us and meet directly with our administration and many members of our administration and many departments throughout all of city government. And so we're very excited about doing this first one. We're then going to move around the entire community. We have future Mayor's Night Outs already planned for the South End, for the West End, and we'll continue to travel throughout the entire city to get out in the community as we seek to enhance transparency and work directly with people in our city, whether it's with LMPD or any other issues. Thank you all very much. Have a good afternoon.